Iran just disrupted Netanyahu's speech with a ballistic missile attack. That's the line that's moving right now, because it compresses a whole war into one cinematic moment. Leader speaks, missiles fly, sirens cut him off, and the world watches the drama like it's a trailer. But here's what matters if you actually want to understand what happened and what it means. In a high-tempo war, disrupted can mean two very different things. It can mean the broadcast literally stopped because sirens went off and people had to move. Or it can mean the speech was happening, missiles were launched around the same time, alerts sounded somewhere, and the internet stitched it into a single narrative because it feels cleaner. So instead of letting a viral caption decide what you believe, I'm going to give you the framework to judge this event the right way, in real time, without panic and without fan fiction. Here's what you're getting. First, what's actually been reported: sirens and incoming missiles during or immediately around one of Netanyahu's national addresses in this war period. IntelliNews. Second, why that timing is not random. Even if it's not a perfectly choreographed speech interruption, the way the internet is presenting it. And third, the three signals to watch that tell you whether this is just psychological warfare or a sign the conflict is shifting into a more dangerous phase. And I'll give you the mini payoff now so you're not waiting for it. When missiles show up during leadership messaging, the real target isn't only the leader. The target is the audience's sense of control. Because if you can make a population feel like nowhere is safe, even for a moment, you've already changed behavior, and behavior is how wars get won or lost. Now let's ground this in what we can say responsibly. There has been sustained reporting of missile alerts and launches from Iran toward Israel during this war period, including sirens sounding in major population centers, Al Arabiya English. And there is specific reporting describing Netanyahu addressing the public as sirens sounded amid missiles from Iran, meaning the speech plus sirens combination is not just an internet invention. IntelliNews. So yes, the core image is real. Leadership messaging happening in the same window as incoming missile alerts. But the more important question is not, did sirens go off? The question is, why does this moment matter so much, and what does it tell you about how this war is being fought? Because this is what people miss. Wars are fought in two arenas at once. The physical arena, missiles, strikes, interceptions, damage, and the perception arena, confidence, fear, legitimacy, momentum. Leadership speeches live in the perception arena. Missile barrages live in the physical arena. When they collide in time, you get a psychological event. And psychological events are the ones that go viral, because they make people feel something immediately. Now, I want to slow down and give you a simple filter you can use whenever you see a headline like this. Separate three buckets. What is confirmed behavior? What is implied intent? And what is being sold emotionally? Confirmed behavior. Missiles were launched, alerts sounded, and people responded. Implied intent. Iran timed this to humiliate Netanyahu, or Iran specifically targeted his speech. That might be true. It might be partially true. But intent is always the hardest thing to prove quickly. And the emotional sale is the part the headline wants you to swallow. They interrupted him, he's panicking, the system is collapsing. That's not analysis. That's a mood packaged as certainty. Now let's talk about why the timing still matters even if you can't prove the perfect choreography. Because in a conflict like this, timing is a weapon. If your missiles arrive while leadership speaks, you force three outcomes at once. One, you steal attention. Instead of people focusing on the message, we are strong, we have a plan, we are in control, their nervous system switches to the oldest program humans have: survive. Two, you create a split-screen moment. The leader says security, the siren says danger. Even if the defenses work, even if nothing lands where you are, the moment itself creates doubt. And three, you impose friction on normal life. That's the real goal of missile pressure in many conflicts. Not just destruction, but disruption. Because disruption drains patience. Disruption drains sleep. Disruption drains trust. Now, here's the part that sounds simple but explains why this is a bigger deal than it looks. In modern war, the weapon isn't only the explosion, the weapon is the interruption. It's the ability to force a society to pause, duck, reroute, cancel, and recalibrate. That's why sirens are such a powerful symbol. A siren is a message that overrides every other message. Now, let's connect this to what's been happening over the last days, because context is everything. Reports have described repeated Iranian missile launches toward Israel with sirens in Jerusalem and central Israel in recent days. Al Arabiya English. And there has been widely circulated video reporting of Iranian projectiles over Tel Aviv with sirens and interceptors launching. Al Jazeera. So the speech plus sirens moment is not a one-off fluke. It's happening in a larger pattern. Repeated cycles of strike, response, warning, and public messaging on both sides. And this is exactly how wars become psychologically exhausting. Not because every day is catastrophic, because every day is uncertain. Now, if you're wondering, why would Iran do this during a speech? Here are the three most realistic explanations, and notice how none of them require a Hollywood conspiracy. Explanation 1. Operational timing. Missile launches are often tied to windows, logistics, readiness, available launch sites, sequencing, and the attempt to saturate defenses. The war doesn't schedule itself around speeches. Sometimes the overlap is simply because both things are happening constantly. Explanation 2. Opportunistic psychological pressure. Even if a barrage wasn't scheduled because of a speech, once you see leadership messaging happening, you lean into the moment. You amplify it in your media. You frame it as dominance. You turn it into a clip. That is standard information warfare. Explanation 3. Deliberate message jamming. This is the most aggressive interpretation, and it's not impossible. You time or accelerate a launch to coincide with a public address because you want the address associated with vulnerability, not necessarily to hurt the leader physically, just to degrade the aura, because in war, aura matters. Now, I'm going to give you the first hard line to remember. If you can't silence the leader, you try to drown the leader in noise. That's what sirens are. Noise that forces attention away from politics and into survival. Now let's talk about Netanyahu's side of the equation, because this is where the internet goes lazy. People see speech disrupted and jump to he's scared or he's losing control. But leaders keep speaking during conflict for a reason. They're not doing it because they enjoy it. They do it because the home front is part of the war. A leader's job in public messaging is to keep three groups aligned: the domestic population, the security establishment, and international partners. And in this war period, Netanyahu has delivered multiple messages framing the campaign as necessary and existential, and urging unity. The times of Israel. So when he speaks, he's trying to reassert narrative control. And when sirens interrupt that moment, the other side wins a temporary advantage in the perception arena, even if the physical outcome is limited. Now, quick reset, because this is where a lot of people get lost. Here's the core of what we've said so far. Missiles and sirens during leadership messaging are real in this conflict period. In telenews, the most important impact is not always physical. It's psychological. Attention theft, confidence erosion, disruption normalization. That's the story underneath the story. Now let's talk about the 3 signals you should watch next, because this is how you tell whether this is just a dramatic moment or the beginning of something more dangerous. Signal 1. Does the tempo change? Not one barrage, not one clip. Tempo over days. If the frequency of launches increases, if warning windows shrink, if there's a pattern of repeated alerts during peak civilian routines, that's escalation and disruption, even if casualty numbers don't spike. Signal 2. Does the geography widen? Sirens in one area are one thing. Broader coverage across multiple regions repeatedly is another. If alerts spread and become routine across more of the country, that changes the domestic psychological map. People start living inside the war, not just watching it. Signal 3. Does the target messaging change? Watch how both sides frame it. If Iranian messaging increasingly frames these moments as we can reach leadership, we can reach centers of power, that's an attempt to shape domestic and international perceptions. If Israeli messaging shifts to emphasize resilience and continuity, we speak under fire, we function under fire, that's a counter-narrative. And when you see those narratives harden, it tells you both sides understand the perception war is becoming as important as the physical one. Now, I want to address a common misconception that shows up immediately whenever a clip like this goes viral. People assume a siren equals a hit. It doesn't. Sirens mean an inbound warning. Interceptions can happen. Impacts can happen. Sometimes nothing happens in your immediate area, even though the alert is real. That's why videos can mislead. A siren clip looks like catastrophe, even when the physical outcome is limited. But, and this is critical, the psychological outcome is never limited. Every siren trains behavior. Every siren reinforces uncertainty. Every siren becomes a memory marker. That's why the disruption part matters, even if the damage part is unclear. Now, if you want a short example of how this works on the human brain, it's simple. You can debate war aims all day, but the moment a siren hits, every political argument loses to one question. Where is my family? And that's the shift Iran benefits from when missiles coincide with public leadership messaging, because it turns politics into instinct. Now, let's bring it back to Netanyahu's first speech framing, because that's another part of the viral packaging. A lot of posts say first speech because it makes the moment feel historic and rare. But Netanyahu has issued multiple recorded messages and statements during this war period, including early addresses when the strikes began. The Times of Israel. So the more accurate way to frame it is not his first speech ever. It's a major public messaging moment, one that the internet paid attention to, happened under the same sky as incoming missile alerts. That's still significant. You don't need the exaggeration for it to matter. Now here's the second hard line to remember. In high-tempo conflict, the side that controls the rhythm controls the psychology. You can't control every interception. You can't control every outcome. But if you can control when the other side feels calm versus when the other side feels disrupted, you start shaping the war's endurance. And endurance is where wars get decided. Now, I want to give you a final clean summary that you can carry forward without needing to memorize details. The reporting supports that sirens and missile alerts sounded during or around Netanyahu's address, and this fits into a broader pattern of Iranian missile launches and Israeli alerts during this war period. In telenews, the most important meaning of that moment is psychological, not just physical. And the next thing to watch is whether the pattern becomes a strategy, increased tempo, widened geography, and hardened messaging about reach and disruption. Because if it does, you're not just watching missiles. You're watching a campaign to control attention. Now here's what I want to know from you, because this is the real debate. Do you think these speech plus siren moments are mostly coincidence inside a constant war tempo? Or do you think they're becoming deliberate timing plays aimed at the home front? And which signal would convince you? Higher frequency, wider coverage, or a clear messaging shift that openly frames it as, we can interrupt your leadership? If you want, I can do a follow-up where we track only confirmed developments as credible reporting converges. No hype, no guessing. Just the signals that actually matter.